Hello students, myself Harpreet Kaur. I welcome you all to my channel Nursing Path Seekers. I'm going to teach you obstetrics and gynecological nursing. So let's start. Today we are going to discuss about the process of implantation. So let's begin with its definition. So what does the definition says? It is the process in which the blastocyst, or we can say the fertilized egg cell, gets attached to the anterior or posterior walls of the endometrium of the uterus nearby the fundus. Right? This is the definition of implantation. Now what does the definition says? It's a process in which the fertilized egg cell or blastocyst, this we have done in our last video called fertilization, right? That gets attached now to the anterior or posterior. Anterior means front and posterior means back wall of the uterus in the endometrium, right? And nearby the fundus. Now what is fundus? This is the uterus and this large broad area is called fundus, right? That is nearby the fallopian tubes, right? This is called fundus. Now the blastocyst that is formed is now going to attach either anteriorly or posteriorly nearby the fundus in the endometrial lining of the uterus, right? Now this process usually occurs on 6th day after fertilization, which corresponds to day 20 of the menstrual cycle. Right? Now this implantation takes place on the 6th day post fertilization, means after fertilization, and that corresponds, which is similar to the 20th day of the last menstrual period, right? So this is the overview of implantation. Now let's have a look upon a term called implantation window. Now what does this mean? It is the most receptive time of the endometrium for blastocyst. Means it is referred to the most suitable time for the endometrium to receive the blastocyst, right? So receptive time period of endometrium for blastocyst, and it is about day 20 to day 24, which corresponds to the 6th or 7th day of post-fertilization. Right? This is which corresponds to the day from the last menstrual period. Right? So this is the overview of the process of implantation. Now let's study about the stages of implantation, right? Now there are 3 main stages of implantation process. First is the apposition, second is the adhesion, and third one is the penetration and invasion. Right? Now we are going to study the process of implantation in these three different stages. With the very first stage called apposition, now this is the fundus of uterus, and here the implantation has to take place. Right? Now what happens here? Now the apposition occurs with the help of pinopods, or you can pronounce it pinopods, right? What are these pinopods? These are the finger-like projections in the endometrial cell surface. Right? These are the finger-like projections on the surface of the endometrial cell. Right? These help to bring the blastocyst into the position. Right? So, apposition occurs with the help of pinopods. Right? Now, second thing, what is the main function? How does the apposition occurs with the help of these pinopods? These help to absorb the endometrial fluid secreted by the endometrial glands. Right? There was a fluid that was being secreted by the endometrial glands in order to keep that blastocyst moist and to provide nutrition to that blastocyst, right? Now the function of this fluid is to provide nutrition to the blastocyst initially. Right? When the blastocyst was floating inside the uterine cavity, the endometrial gland secreted the endometrial fluid that provided the nutrition to the blastocyst. Right? Now, this fluid is rich in glycogen and mucin. Right? This glycogen and mucin provided nutrition to the blastocyst initially. Right? So this is the stage of apposition. Now the second stage is adhesion. Now the meaning of adhesion is to stick, to get attached, right? Now how will the process of attachment take place? The adhesion part will take place, will only occur when the endometrial fluid gets completely absorbed. Right? Until or unless the endometrial fluid is not absorbed, no adhesion process will take place. Right? The blastocyst will keep on floating. Right? Now what happens next is the molecules responsible for the process of adhesion is, first is integrin, second one is cadherin, and the last one is secretin. Right? Adhesion will only take place when the endometrial fluid is completely absorbed, and this process has been controlled by the molecules integrin, cadherin and secretin. Right? Now let's proceed further to the third step. That's the third stage, that is penetration and invasion. Penetration occurs through the stromal cells present between the glands. Right? Now focusing on this part, this is fundus. Here the implantation has to take place. So this is the endometrial lining. Right? This is the endometrial lining and this is the blastocyst. Right? Now this thing we are going to view here. This is the endometrial lining and this is the blastocyst, and this one is the trophoblast layer of the blastocyst, and it contains syncytial cells. Right? These cells are the outer cells of the layer of trophoblast. Right? Now what does these syncytial cells do? They cause a histolytic action. Histolytic action means action of lysis, means breakdown. Right? Now what happens? These cells cause histolytic action and will start destroying or start the lysis or the breakdown of this stromal cells present in the endometrium. Right? Now these stromal cells will undergo lysis, means breakdown, and the further penetration of this blastocyst will occur inside the endometrium. Right? Now see this process here. Now it will further penetrate into the endometrial layer with the lysis process caused by the syncytial cells. Right? Now what happened? This penetration is facilitated by the histolytic action of syncytial cells, that are the outer cells of the trophoblast. Right? Now what happens is, due to lysis, the blastocyst will get buried inside the endometrium more deeper up to the decidual layer. Right? Penetration will further get more deeper and deeper and reaches up to the level of a decidual layer called stratum compactum. The decidua will be our next topic. So I'll explain now in brief what is decidua. It is the endometrium of the pregnant uterus. As soon as the lady gets pregnant, the endometrium term is replaced by the term decidua. Right? So due to the lysis, the blastocyst will get buried deeper, reaching up to the decidual layer. Right? Now what happens further? Now these syncytial cells further penetrates and erodes the endothelium of maternal capillaries. right? Now, nearby the endometrium, here lies the maternal capillaries, right? Now, with the further invasion or penetration, the endothelium of these maternal capillaries will be eroded off or will be destroyed, right? And it becomes continuous, right, with these maternal capillaries and allow the blood to enter inside it through the lacunar system. Now, what is lacuna? It is the cavity, right? Now, the maternal blood will start flowing inside this blastocyst, right? So, here the nutrition is now provided by aerobic presence of oxygen, right? Metabolic pathway from the maternal blood, right? Now the nutrition to the blastocyst is provided from the maternal blood through the aerobic metabolic pathway system, right? Process of implantation has occurred. Initially what happened? This was the endometrial lining and this was the blastocyst, and this was the point from where the blastocyst has to enter inside the endometrial lining, right? Has to penetrate inside the endometrial lining. So this was the starting point, and now after implantation, this is the endometrium, right, called decidua, and now the blastocyst has got embedded inside the endometrium. These are the maternal capillaries and the contact is being established, blood flow is being established, right? Now what will happen? Now there is no more need of further invasion. So how it will be stopped? Further penetration or invasion will be prevented by maternal immunological factors and the point from where this point, right, the penetration occurred will now be covered with a fibrin clot and later by epithelium, right? So this, when it will enter inside the endometrium, this clot, this space will be filled with the fibrin clot, right? Later on with the epithelium, right? Now this whole process is completed at 10th or 11th day after fertilization, which corresponds to 24th or 25th day of last menstrual period, right? And there is a term called interstitial implantation, which means that the blastocyst buried deep inside the endometrium. Right? The blastocyst is now deeply penetrated inside the endometrium and is now covered by endometrium or decidua on all the sides. Right? And last, the process is controlled by cytokines and local peptides such as EGF, epidermal growth factor, IGF, insulin like growth factor, and last, prostaglandins. Right? So this was all about the process of implantation. Now our next topic is trophoblast. Right? Now what is trophoblast? These are the cells that forms the outer layer of blastocyst, right? And also called trophoblast. This is the layer that will further develop into placenta. Right? So now let's have a look upon the trophoblast layer. This is the blastocyst, right? And the outer layer is called trophoblast or trophectoderm, right? And within lies the inner cell mass, right? That will later on form embryo, right? This inner cell mass will form embryo and this trophoblast will lead to the formation of placenta, right? Now what happens? Now just before implantation, trophoblast divides into two parts, that is inner mononuclear cell layer and outer multinuclear cell layer or syncytium, that is called syncytiotropoblast. Right? This layer will form syncytiotropoblast. Right? Now this inner mononucleated layer is called cytotrophoblast. Right? Now let's see. This is the blastocyst and these red ones are the inner mononuclear cellular cell layer, right? And the outer one is the syncytiotropoblast and the inner one is the cytotrophoblast. Right? Now let's differentiate the trophoblast layer into two parts, inner and outer. The inner one is cytotrophoblast and the outer one is syncytial trophoblast, right? Now this cytotrophoblast will further penetrate into three different areas, right? When it lines the villus stem, it is called villus cytotrophoblast, and when it invades the decidua, it is called interstitial extravillus cytotrophoblast. Right? When it invades decidua, interstitial word we have studied now only, that it is related to the deep implantation, right? So when the layer of cytotrophoblast invades decidua, it will be named as interstitial extravillus cytotrophoblast, right? And the last one, when it invades the lumens of maternal spiral arteries, it is called intravascular extravillus cytotrophoblast. Right? So this is all about trophoblast. What happened? Just before implantation, it was divided into two layers, inner and outer. Inner was mononucleated, means having single nucleus, and outer one was multinucleated, means having multiple nucleus, right? And the outer one will form syncytial trophoblast, right? And the inner one is called cytotrophoblast, that further invades into three parts, that is, which lines the villus system will be called villus cytotrophoblast. The one that invades the decidua will be called interstitial extravillus cytotrophoblast, and the one that invades the lumens of maternal spiral arteries will be known as intravascular extravillus cytotrophoblast, right? Now the point to be remembered is, throughout pregnancy, syncytial trophoblast is derived from cytotrophoblast, right? This syncytial trophoblast will be derived from the cytotrophoblast, right? The placenta and fetal membranes are developed from trophoblast, right? So what will be the three main functions of trophoblast? First is invasion, second one is providing nutrition, and third one is maintenance of pregnancy. With this, we have completed with the whole process of implantation and formation of trophoblast, right? Thank you so much.